With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, we'll head out to the World Dairy Expo. We will also have news from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association on protesters and a law they're trying to pass in Colorado. But we start today with the devastation in the South from Hurricane Helene. USDA Undersecretary Robert Bonney addressed the severe agricultural impacts caused by Hurricane Helene, emphasizing both immediate and long-term challenges for farmers.
We know they're significant. We know there will be short-term impacts, and we also know that the impacts on farmer livelihoods will last for potentially years. USDA is prepared to be with farmers in the weeks, months, and years ahead.
Bonney noted that USDA offices, critical for serving farmers, have been affected by power outages, but plans are underway to reopen them and increase staffing.
USDA has offices in every county to serve farmers, ranchers, and forest owners, but obviously those offices are impacted by power losses and the impacts on our personnel as well. We're working as quickly as we can to reopen them, and our expectation is in the days and weeks ahead, we will surge staff from headquarters and elsewhere to those offices to satisfy increased demand.
Joining us on the phone is Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff. Senator, thank you for taking some time to be on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start off with just asking, we're focusing on the agricultural sectors that are affected by the hurricane. Can you tell me, do you have any idea of how extensive the damage is across the southeastern area?
The damage that Georgia growers have sustained, as well as poultry and dairy operations, is in some cases catastrophic. The fall crops that were still in the field have been defoliated or knocked over, are now at additional risk of rot and disease. Our pecan orchards have been uprooted. Our foresters have taken very serious damage. And the agricultural loss to Georgia and the entire southeast region is massive. And that's why I've led this coalition of 34 members of Congress in urging that as soon as possible after the completion of damage assessments, that we appropriate funds for disaster assistance for our farmers.
And it's been just devastating to see the amount just of all of the damage. There have not been a lot of good programs that were already put in place, readily accessible, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so you were leading this charge to get our federal government involved as quickly as possible. Is that right?
Yeah, let me say, first of all, that my office, my team, and I are standing by to assist growers in accessing those programs that are presently fully funded, as well as to assist them with their crop insurance claims. But the bottom line is that we have to supplement disaster assistance, and we need to do it soon. From the moment it became clear that this storm was forming and going to run up the Gulf, I got on the phone with growers and agricultural leaders across Georgia to get a sense of their level of concern and the preparations they were making. And this storm did even more damage to agriculture in Georgia than expected. And these are the same farmers who were out there the next day with their chainsaws and their equipment clearing their neighbors' roads and driveways. These farmers are the backbone of the society and the economy in rural Georgia. And a lot of them, they don't have 401k accounts, right? For them, their crops, their orchards, their forestry tracts, these are their savings. These are their assets. And when an act of God comes through like this and does this kind of damage, we've got to be there supporting our agricultural community. It remains Georgia's #1 industry, and it's essential to American food security. Our agricultural production feeds the nation and feeds the world.
With all of the damage that has been done, what can be done now to prevent lasting economic damage? As mentioned in the letter, how can we help make sure that they can at some point get back up on their feet?
That's why agricultural disaster assistance is so essential. A lot of growers have been struggling as it is with high input costs and low commodity prices, concerned about creditworthiness headed into the next season. And this is a very significant additional blow to them. So for their long-term economic prospects, which mean the long-term economic prospects of rural communities in Georgia and our nation's food security, we need to step in. We need to come together as Democrats and Republicans and act swiftly once these damage assessments are complete to pass ag disaster assistance.
We are speaking this morning with Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff about the destruction from Hurricane Helene. We will continue the conversation right after this.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We continue now with Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff. We're talking about the destruction from the hurricane and what can be done to help farmers at this point. The bipartisan and bicameral support from nearly 3 dozen lawmakers across the southern states, that's notable. How important is it for this level of cooperation when it comes to seeking and securing this kind of relief funding?
It's always important that we're working together, no matter our political affiliation, to put the national interest first. And having a strong agricultural economy is in our nation's essential national interest. I always try to work across the aisle. There's so much bickering in politics and government. When we can put that aside and do what's right for the people we represent, that's when we succeed. That's when our communities succeed. And I want to add that I am accessible and available to growers and agricultural leaders in Georgia who want to bring any issues to my attention. I'm happy to speak with you personally. I've spoken with many of you personally over the last few days. You can reach out to my office. All the information is at ossoff.senate.gov.
And of course, we're talking today about the agricultural losses because of the hurricane, but also in the letter, it mentions, or in the news release about the letter, it mentions other agricultural disasters around the nation that farmers have seen that haven't necessarily been met quickly with federal support. Is there a way to improve this?
I do think we have to have a broader conversation about making these programs more flexible and responsive and improving the accessibility and the quality of our crop insurance and risk management systems. But to your point, this is now the third time in just over a year that South Georgia has been faced with hurricane strength winds and major agricultural damage. We're about a year and a half behind on filling up the agricultural disaster assistance funding bucket, and we must do it now in the aftermath of this hurricane. I also spoke over the weekend, and I think this will be of interest to your listeners and your readers, with Secretary Vilsack, as well as Undersecretary of Agriculture Bonnie, and I requested that they issue a waiver so that farmers can self-assess the damage on their farms and not have to wait for FSA personnel to get out to their operations to document it. Given the challenges for transportation and power and logistics across the region right now, we need that kind of waiver from USDA to empower growers and farmers to document their own damage for the purposes of filing claims.
I could see how that would be extremely helpful in the situation, especially since even this morning I was on a press call with Undersecretary Bonnie, who mentioned just the staffing issues alone because their staff is also affected. So getting out to do these assessments, I can see would be a problem. So allowing farmers to be able to do some of these assessments themselves, I think would certainly streamline some of the processes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's why I've requested that USDA issue that waiver. I will inform the agricultural community if and when such a waiver is granted. And the images that I'm getting on my phone, there's hundreds of farmers in Georgia who have my cell phone number. And I'm glad, because it allows me to see directly and hear directly from them when they go through something like this. These are really devastating pictures of very significant crop loss, catastrophic damage to orchards, and we got to be there for them.
Is there anything that you would say for my farmer listeners who are listening in other states, our listeners out in California and in other areas, is there anything that they can do to help their fellow farmers in the affected areas in Georgia?
Well, here's the thing. Over the last couple of years, every region of the country has been impacted by some kind of natural disaster. And if you are a Western grower or you're in the Midwest, you also stand to benefit from the appropriation of agricultural disaster assistance by Congress. You likely have or have colleagues who have claims that haven't yet been funded through USDA for past disasters. So it's not just a matter of concern for Southern growers. This is really a national issue. So my advice is call your senators, call your U.S. representatives, and aggressively advocate for ag disaster assistance. Engage your local and state farm bureaus and the American Farm Bureau who are pushing for this. Let them know you want to help get it done. Engage with the industry groups and advocacy groups who represent your crops in particular, and get them to push for it. We really need a full court press right now, putting pressure on Washington to get this done.
And then we are speaking just a day after the Farm Bill extension expired. Would having a Farm Bill in place or getting a Farm Bill into place, would those programs also be able to help our farmers with the damage from the hurricane?
It's crucial for farmers in Georgia and for ag across the country to get a Farm Bill done and for it to be a good Farm Bill. One of the things that I'm pushing for are increased reference prices for commodities grown in Georgia, as well as assistance for our specialty crop growers who are dealing with unfair imports from Mexico and Central America. It's very important that Congress find a bipartisan path forward, quit bickering, and pass a good Farm Bill.
Right. And I know that there are a lot of questions that I probably should have asked you and have not. If there's any that you can think of, or do you have any final thoughts for our listeners that they need to know on this?
To everybody in Georgia and across the Southeast impacted, please know that you're in my and my family's prayers. And I want to emphasize for farmers in Georgia that my team and I are here to help and assist you in any way that we can. You can get me on the phone. You can get my staff on the phone. All the contact information is at ossoff.senate.gov. Just let us know what you need.
Thank you. And once again, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes out. I know that you do have a lot of work that you're doing right now, so I do appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you once again to Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. When we come back, we're talking about Colorado and some activist motions on the ballot there.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
For this segment, we're going to Hunter Ehrman of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association for an important discussion on a couple of things on the ballot in Colorado. Here's Hunter.
Well, we're just a few short weeks away from the November general election, and here at NCBA, we frequently say that the future of the cattle industry is on the ballot. And in the city of Denver, that is literally true. This fall, Denver voters will be considering ballot initiatives 308 and 309 that will impact the ability to sell fur within the city of Denver, as well as impact a meat processing facility within the Denver city limits. For more information on these initiatives, we are joined now by Aaron Carney-Spohr, Executive Vice President of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association. Aaron, what can you tell us about these two ballot initiatives?
Thanks, Hunter. And as we sit today, we're 36 days out from Election Day. And I think when everyone looks at the news, they see the presidential election, right? It's in the headlines. But I think here in Colorado and specifically here in Denver, we're all very concerned about the ballot initiatives coming to the Denver ballot. And so just a little background, for the statewide ballot measures, anyone can petition to be on and then on the ballot, and then they have to, go through the signature gathering phase and then qualify for the ballot. The bar is set a little lower for city and county of Denver as, you have the idea and you gather signatures. In this case, for the Denver ballot measure, they had to gather about 9,000 signatures to qualify for the ballot. And then it's just a vote of the city council to determine if it's approved to go on the ballot or not. And so that threshold was a lot lower for these ballot measures. So what we see with these ballot measures is the proponents is a animal activist organization, Pro Animal Future. And like you said, they're bringing two ballot measures. The first ballot measure is we're calling it, initiated Ordinance 308, which is the fur ban, and it would ban fur sales in the city and county of Denver. What that means is that when you think of a cowboy hat and beaver, it could potentially ban the sales of cowboy hats. And when you think about the city and county of Denver and what that encompasses, it also encompasses the National Western Stock Show. And they foresee about 20% of their vendors could be impacted by this fur ban directly. It also prohibits, fly fishing and flies. Could be some fur is used in that, and could prohibit the sale of those flies in the city of county and Denver. And just, I think what the proponents try to say and try to downplay the impact of this, but this could have a major impact to the city and county of Denver just for this one initiative. Pro Animal Future is also bringing a second initiative, which especially in the meat industry and the livestock industry we're especially concerned with, which is ballot initiative 309, which is the ban of slaughterhouses in the city and county of Denver. When you think about city and county of Denver, you think about the stockyards, and it was the meat packing district down there. And one slaughterhouse remains, and that's Superior Farms, which is a lamb processing plant that has about 160 employees and is one of the largest lamb processors in the country. And, we're talking, and we, as the Cattlemen's Association, NCBA, to beef producers. So why should they care about this? And I think it ultimately comes down to Pro Animal Future and their broad goals of not only eliminating that slaughterhouse, but their future goals of eliminating just animal agriculture. So this is not only impacts city, county, and Denver residents, but could potentially impact everyone nationwide.
When you think of Denver, you think of things like the National Western Stock Show, and it seems like Denver would be a place that would be pretty pro-agriculture. How does a campaign like this advance so far to the general election?
It ultimately comes from out-of-state activists, and that's what we're finding with Pro Animal Future. We've seen past ballot measures, at the statewide level, from the Pause Initiative to the wolf reintroduction, which was in 2020, and currently on the state ballot measure is the prohibition to ban mountain lion, bobcat, and lynx hunting. And so we're seeing just an influx of animal activists trying to manipulate the ballot. And, when we see Pro Animal Future, I think we see that they were targeting specifically the city and county of Denver, one, because of that low threshold to actually get on the ballot. Two, the Denver voter base is predominantly, left, majorly left to center, and they thought they could get that voter base to vote with them. And three, they're really looking to test out and develop their messaging. And they've made it very clear in multiple channels and interviews that Denver is just the testing ground, and just the testing ground to test out this message, to see the aptitude to really refine their campaign, and then to see how to refine it more to take it to other cities. And so what we're trying to also say is, these out-of-state interests have no stake in the future of Denver. They have no stake in the future of Colorado. And there's real impacts, especially to those employees that are city and county of Denver residents, to the actual local area of just like losing that local food source and losing that local business. But also it sets a dangerous precedent for the city and county of Denver to ban one single business based on what you produce or manufacture.
You're listening to Beltway Beef on the AgNet News Hour, and we will continue right after this. We continue now with Hunter Ehrman and the Beltway Beef podcast from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
Well, these ballot initiatives are something that would apply to the city and county of Denver if they were to be passed. But why is this something that the entire state should be concerned about, and really the entire cattle industry as a whole?
When you really dig into the leaders of Pro Animal Future, they are radical animal activists, that have taken this idea and really trying to refine it. And I think one, when you look at it at the surface, you're like, okay, they're trying to ban one slaughterhouse in the city of county of Denver, and that was our initial take on it. And then we started to dig deeper and listen to the interviews and some of the podcasts that they have recently been featured in. And they make it very, very clear that it's not about Denver. It's not about the slaughterhouse, but they're ultimately just trying to test out their message. And they're essentially intelligence building. They're intelligence building on us as an industry, on us as a message, on the employees of the slaughterhouse, on how they respond, but also how to really build and refine a campaign in order to replicate it in other cities. And that's the real fear. Some of their messaging, they're saying even if they just get 40% of the votes, but the ballot measure ultimately fails, they're looking at it as a win because they've got 40% of voters to vote with them, but they also, intelligence built on us, the opposition, to build that campaign. And so what we're seeing is that we have to get out in front of them. We only have 36 days to do this, and we really have to make sure that we really, really defeat this measure. But not only that, that they don't have the opportunity to take it to other cities across Colorado, but also other cities and counties across the nation. And then they've also stated their ultimate goal is to shock the nation with ballot measures across the nation in statewide ballot measures. And so we as an industry must take this serious, and not only for slaughterhouses, but also for our entire industry, from the cow-calf producer to the processing facility.
Well, Aaron, what has the Colorado Cattlemen's Association been doing to push back on some of this and inform voters about what's really going on?
We, as Colorado Cattlemen's Association, are a part of the ultimate steering committee for the campaign. It's Stop the Ban, Protect Jobs is the opposition campaign. And that is a committee of local and statewide organizations, all the way up to national organizations, all banding together with funding, but also volunteers. So from the volunteering to handwrite postcards to send to each individual voter in the city and county of Denver limits. They're also potentially going to be texting and having volunteers for texting. So we have been intimately involved in making sure that us as a state cattlemen's association are involved in volunteering, in steering the direction of campaign messaging, developing that campaign messaging, and then ultimately getting the word out, not only to the city and county of Denver residents, but I think it's also getting the word out to the potential impacts to our producers, and making sure that our producers are aware that this is happening. What we're finding, initial polling actually showed, for city and county of Denver residents, about 51% weren't even aware that this was an issue or that there was a slaughterhouse in Denver. We have an uphill battle in just trying to illustrate the impact that this could have. We're also finding, as we travel to local cattlemen's associations or across the state, that more and more people are hearing about it, but there's still a lot of people that have not heard about it.
I know you've certainly seen this in Colorado, but it feels like we're starting to see a growing rural and urban divide, and a lot of people living in the cities or in the suburbs might not really know how their food is produced or what we're doing as cattle producers. What do you recommend to producers for how to talk about your operation and what it's like to raise livestock?
I think the number one message that it comes down to is we care, and we care about our animals, we care about the communities, we care about just the entire industry, but also the local communities in the state. And I think when we start from that, rather than ultimately, getting frustrated and trying to educate, we come from that place of vulnerability, and they're pretty receptive. I think we've had a learning experience these probably in the past 5 years at our state legislature of less and less of our state legislature is made up of actual producers. I would say 3 out of our 100 state legislators are actually producers on the ground. And so we've had to build relationships with maybe those that you typically wouldn't think of. But I have found that some of those relationships are the most fulfilling relationships because they're curious and they want to know. And most of the time, they're not coming from a place of wanting to put you out of business, but they're coming from a place of not understanding and just wanting to learn more.
That was Hunter Ehrman and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association with the Beltway Beef Podcast.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We go now to Madison, Wisconsin, where the annual World Dairy Expo is underway. Farm broadcaster Brian Winnikins joins us from the expo.
I'm Brian Winnikins from World Dairy Expo. Joining us today, American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall, who made an appearance here at Expo on the first day of Expo. President Duvall, welcome to World Dairy Expo. You've had a chance to take a tour. What did you think of Expo?
Oh, it's beautiful here. The cattle are beautiful, and the people are having a good time. A little windy, but other than that, it's a great time. And I'm a recovering dairyman myself from Georgia, and I have always wanted to come here and never had the opportunity to do that. So this is an exciting day for me.
First, you mentioned you're originally from Georgia. Have you had a chance to talk with folks down in Georgia about the situation with the remnants of Hurricane Helene?
Yes, it's pretty devastating down there. Crop damage is pretty extensive. A lot of poultry houses have collapsed. A lot of property loss. So it's pretty extensive. But it's not just Georgia; it's Florida, also South Carolina, North Carolina, and into Virginia and Tennessee. So this is a very extensive storm, and the Georgia people just told me they thought it was probably going to be worse than what Michael was several years ago.
Talking with American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall. So I know that it's so early in the process. Farmers are going to want to help their neighbors down in Georgia or North Carolina. Is American Farm Bureau still trying to determine how to set something up so Wisconsin farmers can help out?
Yeah, normally we leave that up to the states, and then we participate with them however we can as far as just shifting the information to people that need to know what to do. And I know that all 4 or 5 of those state farm bureaus are working right now trying to put those create those ways to be able to get help back to the farmers and for farmers to be able to donate the stuff or whatever it might be to help them get it there. So that is to be seen, but they're working on a structure right now.
Talking with American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall, who was here at World Dairy Expo this week. You mentioned you're a recovering dairyman, so now I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your favorite breed of dairy cattle?
Well, I milked Holsteins all my life because that's what I grew up with. But I always had a desire to milk Jerseys, and my wife right now is we both lost our first loves to cancer, and we just been married 3 years ago, and she's got me back in. We got 2 Jersey cows at home that she's milking, so I'm her relief milker when I go home. It
only starts with 2. You know what happens? It'll be 3, then it'll be 4. That's awesome. Okay, with the dairy industry, of course, the big topic has been changes to the federal milk market order system. And there's still a lot of debate on the proposed changes. What's American Farm Bureau's position on those?
Well, we've got a lot of wins in this, but we also were disappointed in a few areas. So, but, really and truly, we're proud of the process. It really got this process started several years ago when we called all the dairy industry together in the Midwest, and from dairymen to co-ops to all the people that was involved in it, and says, we really need to do something. And then coming out of that, we had the federal milk order hearings, and that lasted weeks and weeks on weeks, and now we're going through the rules that are being released from it. So we've had some wins in it. We was glad to see what has happened, but there are some areas we wish we could have went a little bit further.
What are some areas you'd have liked to have seen changed?
So we'd like to see a definite audit before we have the price changes that they put into effect by the milk plants, and that was one area we was disappointed that we didn't have a audit before those changes are made.
Talking with American Farm Bureau President C.P. Duvall, we'll switch gears here a little bit from the federal milk market order. Obviously, the Farm Bill hasn't happened yet. You're in D.C. You have American Farm Bureau has a lot of contacts. What are the odds? Should we just bet on $30 hundredweight milk instead of a Farm Bill this year?
I think we're going to, I'm an optimist, so I got a feeling we're going to have it. No, we're seeing more conversation now than we saw 3 weeks ago, so that's encouraging to us. And we're coming up on that cliff where they got to make a decision. They got to make a decision. And we don't want to talk about the E word because we don't need an extension. Our people need they need certainty in their neighborhood and in our industry, and the only way we're going to get that is to get a farm bill done. So and we are along with all our commodity groups working really hard to do a full blitz on Washington, trying to make them understand that this is what the American farmer needs. This is what the American people need, because this farm bill is not really a farm bill, it's a food and farm bill. And the people in this country, 85% of the people we survey says they realize that the farm bill helps national security by making sure that we have a secure food supply. And we can't have a secure food supply without a good farm bill being there to provide risk management tools for our farmers and assistance during difficult times to get them through difficult times. And, what we don't talk about enough is a nutrition program that's 85% of the expenditures in that bill. And there are people, millions of people across this country that are dependent on that to get them from day to day and give them a hand up, not a handout, but a hand up during difficult times in their life.
That is American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall from World Dairy Expo. I'm Brian Winnekins. Expo continues through Friday. Of course, Expo has a big international component as well. And I am with David Smith. He's from Scotland. And he's with a group that was taking part in some of the FFA judging. And we're going to talk with David a little bit. This is pretty cool that they had a chance to come out to Expo. David, thank you for joining us. First, tell us where you're from.
Yes, so I'm from Scotland, just over an hour outside of Edinburgh in the county of Ayrshire.
And tell us a little bit about your farm.
So I'm from, it's a family farm, a family dairy farm. We also run some sheep as well, and we have Holsteins back at home. So nowhere near the scale as some of these guys that are farming out here, but yeah.
How many cattle do you have?
We just milk 100 cows back home.
Okay, and Holsteins, huh? I mean, I figured Ayrshire, is where you're at. That would be like a law that you have to have those.
Well, we've got a few in the herd just to keep the tradition going, I suppose, but it's mainly Holsteins. So
tell us a little bit about, you had a chance to come out here and take part in some of the FFA judging. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we got the opportunity to come out here after there's 4 of us over. We done well at our stock judging competition back home in the SAYFC competition at the Royal Highland Show. So because of that, we get the chance to come out to World Dairy Expo and experience their stock judging. So we competed in the FFA competition this morning, which was great to see. It was very different to what we do back home. The classes were a lot longer, time to judge, but it was great to see.
And what an experience, huh? Because like you said, it's the classes are so much bigger here than compared to home?
Well, the number of cattle in the classes is the same. Just the time you get to judge the cattle is a lot longer over here. Back home, it's very stressful. You don't get much time. It's a bit of a panic. Whereas out here, you get more time to look at the cattle and maybe make your decision-making process a bit easier sometimes.
So, have you had a chance to even tour some dairy farms while you're here?
That's the plan this afternoon. Yesterday, we did go a drive ourselves and just slowed down and cruised by some dairy farms, but this afternoon we're going on some farm tours, so that'll be great.
From what you've seen so far, how much different is it compared to home?
Oh, it's crazy. The scale out here is massive compared to back home. There's very few farms that are near as big back home as what there is out here, and it's just, it's totally different. It's really good to see.
Well, enjoy your time here at Expo. That's David Smith. Him and 3 other folks from Scotland are here, part of the FFA judging. They're doing some farm tours as well at World Dairy Expo. I'm Brian Winnekins.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Wrapping up today with some news for you. California's dairy industry is facing a growing threat as the H5N1 avian influenza virus, typically found in poultry, has crossed over to infect cattle. With more than 30 dairies already affected in California, the virus is expected to spread further in the state. Veterinarian Dr. Kay Russo emphasized the importance of early detection, urging farmers to allow epidemiologists to investigate the spread of the virus. Although the virus behaves less severely in cattle than in poultry, where it causes high mortality, biosecurity measures are critical to prevent outbreaks. Russo recommends that farmers implement strict hygiene protocols to limit the virus's spread between farms, especially from workers exposed to both dairy and poultry operations. There is currently no vaccine for H5N1 in cattle, making biosecurity and early detection the primary defenses. We have more information on our website, agnetwest.com. The Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have announced a $5 million funding opportunity for research on key fish species. The grants will support studies on Chinook salmon, rainbow trout, green sturgeon, white sturgeon, and delta smelt in the Central Valley and Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta. The funding, which is available fiscal year 2025 pending budget approval, aims to gather information that improves decision-making models for fish recovery strategies. Eligible projects include field and lab studies that focus on fish growth, survival rates, movement, and population size, among other factors. Researchers are encouraged to apply for these competitive grants, with applications being evaluated on their potential to achieve specific research outcomes. For more details and application requirements, you can visit grants.gov and search for Central Valley Project Fish Information Needs. During a recent Farm Action webinar, Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor highlighted the Department of Justice's commitment to addressing consolidation in the agriculture industry. Cantor pointed to a recent report from Farm Action which outlines the impact of corporate concentration on key areas like seeds, farm machinery, and meatpacking, and noted how these trends have put increasing pressure on family farmers and rural communities. Cantor emphasized the DOJ's ongoing efforts to tackle anti-competitive practices in the sector. He referenced a case against AgriStats, which the DOJ alleges manipulated prices in the meat processing industry, and a legal battle involving John Deere over farmers' rights to repair their own equipment. These cases, he said, reflect the DOJ's dedication to ensuring fair competition in agriculture. Cantor also stressed the importance of collaboration with the USDA in enforcing the Packers and Stockyards Act. That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halverson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.